Insomnia is a financial analyst's worst enemy, especially when your brain transforms into a calculator, counting not profits and losses, but the minutes of her absence. 3 hours and 47 minutes. That's exactly how long my wife Sarah has been gone. I sit in our spacious living room, where every detail of the interior was once carefully chosen together. The designer floor lamp, whose dimmed light casts bizarre shadows on the walls, now seems inappropriately theatrical, as if I'm an actor in some drama where the protagonist is about to discover the bitter truth about his life. Nathan, it's just one evening. Her words still ring in my ears. I need to find closure with the past, to understand why everything ended the way it did. Marcus. Even thinking his name makes me sick. A successful tech entrepreneur from Austin, her ex. The one who once broke her heart, but apparently not completely. I remember how she talked about him, reluctantly, sparingly, as if touching an old wound. And now he suddenly appeared in Denver and decided to talk about the past. My gaze falls on the photograph on the mantel, our wedding 4 years ago. Sarah in her white dress, laughing with her head thrown back, while I look at her with such tenderness that it still makes my heart ache. We were so happy. Were we? My phone vibrates. A message from Ryan, my colleague at Goldman Sachs. How you holding up, buddy? Fine. I type back, knowing it's a lie. She's just having dinner with her ex. No big deal. That's BS, comes the instant reply. Normal wives don't have dinner with their exes at 11 p.m., especially not at the Capitol Grill. You know how much a table there costs. Of course I know. I took Sarah there for our third anniversary. A romantic restaurant overlooking downtown, live jazz, a wine list the size of a novel. The perfect place for what exactly? Maybe I should drive over there. I type, but delete the message before sending. Instead, I get up and walk to the window. Our townhouse is positioned to see the lights of downtown Denver. Somewhere among those lights, my wife is finding closure with her past. I wonder at what cost. The sound of an approaching car makes my heart race faster. Tesla Model 3, her car. I peer into the darkness and see Sarah getting out of an Uber. Uber? Where's her car? She climbs the steps with an unsteady gait, clearly been drinking. In any other situation, I'd already be heading down to help her. But now, I just stand and watch as she fumbles with her keys, as if they've suddenly become foreign objects. Nathan? Her voice sounds surprised when she sees me in the living room. You're still awake. Should I not be? My voice sounds calm, too calm. It's almost 4 in the morning, Sarah. Where's your car? She takes off her shoes, expensive Louboutin pumps, my birthday gift. Her movements are imprecise, as if she's not quite sure what she's doing. Left it at the restaurant. She tries to sound casual. Marcus insisted I shouldn't drive. He's so thoughtful. Thoughtful. That word hits harder than any punch could. I slowly walk to the bar and pour myself a bourbon. Not to drink, just need something to do with my hands. And how was your meeting? Each word is a struggle. Did you find your closure? Sarah collapses into the armchair, covering her face with her hands. God, Nathan, stop it. You know I love you. It was just a meeting. Just a conversation. Just a conversation. I take a sip of bourbon, feeling the alcohol burn my throat. Until 4 a.m. in a restaurant that closes at 11. She stays silent, and this silence speaks louder than any words could. I watch as she twirls a strand of hair, an old habit that surfaces when she's nervous or lying. We went to a bar after the restaurant, she finally says. We needed to finish our conversation. About what? My voice grows quieter. What could you possibly talk about for so long with someone you haven't seen in 5 years? You don't understand. She jumps up, and I see tears in her eyes. He's part of my past. I needed to understand why everything happened the way it did, why he just disappeared back then without explaining anything. And now you understand. I set my glass down on the table. Too abruptly. Bourbon splashes onto the polished surface. Yes, I don't know. She collapses back into the chair. He's changed. Or I've changed. Everything's become so complicated. I look at her, disheveled, tearful, in a crumpled dress that was immaculate just this morning. And suddenly I realize this is the end. The end of everything I believed in all these years. You know what's the worst part, Sarah? My voice is almost gentle. It's not that you met him, not that you've disappeared all night. It's that you don't even understand what you've betrayed. Not me. Us. Everything we've built over these years. Nathan, please. She reaches for me, but I step back. Go to bed, I say, heading for the stairs. We'll talk tomorrow. Where are you going? Panic creeps into her voice. To the guest room, I answer without turning around. Seems like I need to find my own closure. As I climb the stairs, I hear her sobbing. Those sounds used to tear my heart apart. Now they just echo in the void that's formed inside me. In the guest room, I take out my phone and text Ryan. You were right. She came back at 4, drunk, with some story about a bar after the restaurant. His response comes instantly. Meet me at the office tomorrow. We need to talk. I lie down fully clothed. Numbers spin in my head, no longer counting the minutes of her absence, but the years of our life together. 4 years of marriage, thousands of shared breakfasts, hundreds of plans for the future, and one night that erased it all. Downstairs, I can still hear her muffled sobs. And I lie here thinking about how tomorrow will be the most important conversation of my life, and it won't be with her. Morning greeted me with a throbbing headache and the humming silence of our house. Sarah was already gone. Her yoga class started at 9. Usually, she'd leave a note with a cute smiley face or heart, but today the kitchen counter was empty. Just a coffee cup with lipstick marks on the rim, half finished and cold. Ryan was waiting for me at our regular spot near the Goldman Sachs office. His hawk-like gaze immediately noticed my rumpled appearance and the absence of my wedding ring. I'd taken it off for the first time in 4 years. You look like hell warmed over. He slid a double espresso across the table. But that's good. What I'm about to tell you is better heard stone cold sober. I silently took the cup. My hands trembled slightly, the sleepless night taking its toll. Remember Jessica from compliance? Ryan spoke quietly, though there was nobody within earshot. She's friends with Marcus's sister. And guess what? Your dinner last night. It wasn't some spontaneous meetup. They'd been planning it for 2 weeks. The coffee suddenly tasted like bile. Go on. My voice came out hoarse. Marcus didn't come back to Denver by chance. His startup, it's a charity platform. He collects money for various social projects. And you know who his main consultant on audience engagement is. I felt nausea rising in my throat. Sarah. Bingo! Ryan leaned back in his chair. Your life coach wife, who loves talking about spiritual growth and karma, has been working with him for a month already. Remotely, of course. So you wouldn't find out. At that moment, my phone vibrated. Message from Sarah. Can we meet for lunch? We need to talk. I showed the screen to Ryan. He snorted. Oh, now she wants to talk. After her LinkedIn profile has been showing her working at Marcus's company for a month? What? See for yourself, but brace yourself. There's plenty to unpack, like joint photos from charity events. And you know what? All these events were in Austin, during those days when she told you she was at yoga retreats. The world around me started crumbling like a house of cards. Each word from Ryan was a new blow, destroying what I had believed was my reality. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, in a trendy loft office overlooking downtown Denver, Sarah sat across from Marcus, nervously fidgeting with her bracelet, my anniversary gift. You understand you have to make a decision, right? His voice was soft, almost hypnotic. We can't keep going like this. A double life isn't what I can offer my director of community engagement. Director? She looked up. Are you serious? Dead serious. He flashed that smile that used to drive her crazy years ago. 6-figure salary, stock options, office in Austin. A new life, Sarah. The one you've always dreamed of. But what about, she faltered. Nathan. Marcus shrugged dismissively. Come on, you said it yourself last night. You've been living on autopilot with him for ages. He's buried in his numbers and charts. How could someone like that understand your spiritual journey, your desire to make the world a better place? Sarah remained silent, staring at her bracelet. The tiny diamonds caught the sunlight, reminding her of the day Nathan had fastened it around her wrist. Like stars, he had said then. Little stars that will always light your path. I need to think, her voice trembled. Of course, Marcus leaned back in his chair. You have until tonight. Flight to Austin leaves at 9 tomorrow morning. I've already booked your ticket. At that moment, Sarah's phone chimed. A text from Nathan. Don't bother about lunch. I know everything. About your job, the trips, all of it. We'll talk at home tonight. She felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Meanwhile, at the Goldman Sachs office, I was already packing my things. Are you sure about this? Ryan stood in my office doorway. Maybe give her a chance to explain. You know, I carefully placed our wedding photo in a box. There are some things that can't be explained, can't be justified. You can only accept them and move forward. And where are you headed? Booked a room at the Four Seasons. It'll do for now. I closed the box. And then, there's just opened a position for head of analytics at our Austin branch. Austin, Ryan whistled, where Marcus's company is based. I smiled. For the first time in this endless day, they say revenge is a dish best served cold, and I've always loved working with numbers, especially when it comes to financial fraud in charitable foundations. What are you planning? You'll see, I slung my bag over my shoulder. By the way, know any good divorce lawyers? Seems like it's time for me to find my own closure. The final one. The Capitol Grill was closing when Sarah stepped out into the street. The cool evening air made her shiver despite her expensive cashmere coat. Marcus had insisted she leave her car. Only someone with a death wish drives after 3 glasses of wine. Her Tesla Model 3 sat abandoned in the parking lot. The entire ride home, she rehearsed her speech. About spiritual growth, about the need for self-realization, about the importance of following one's destiny. The words she so often preached to her yoga clients now felt hollow and fake. The Uber stopped at their townhouse. The windows were dark. Maybe Nathan was already asleep. That cowardly hope vanished the moment she opened the door. The living room greeted her with dead silence and emptiness. The couch, where their throw blankets usually lay, was pristinely bare. The table that always held their wedding photo gaped with emptiness. And in the air hung the faint smell of cardboard, the smell of packed belongings. Nathan. Her voice sounded unnaturally loud in the empty house. Silence answered her. On the kitchen counter lay an envelope, white, unmarked, the same kind Nathan used for important documents at Goldman Sachs. Inside was a printed page, a petition for divorce. Her knees buckled, and Sarah sank to the floor. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone. 5 missed calls from Marcus, 1 message from Nathan. I took my things. Divorce papers are on the counter. The house is yours. Consider it my parting gift. Hope it was worth it. At that moment, her phone rang. Marcus. Baby, you home. How did it go? His voice sounded artificially cheerful. He's gone. Her voice broke. Took his things and left divorce papers. Perfect. Triumphant notes crept into his tone. So nothing's stopping you from accepting my offer. We fly to Austin tomorrow. I've already booked the tickets. What? She felt bile rising in her throat. Marcus, my husband, just left, and you're talking about tickets. What's there to wait for? Steel notes appeared in his voice. Sarah, let's be real here. We haven't been meeting all this month for nothing. I didn't offer you this job for nothing. You didn't seriously think you could keep straddling both worlds forever, did you? Just then, a message came from an unknown number. Photos. Her and Marcus at restaurants in Austin, at charity events, entering his office, and financial reports from his company showing glaring discrepancies in the numbers. Marcus, her voice turned to ice. What are these numbers in the reports? Why doesn't the donation amount match what actually reached the beneficiaries? A heavy silence hung on the line. Where did you get those documents? His voice changed, becoming harsh and unfamiliar. Does it matter? You used me. All this time. Don't be naive, he laughed. Of course I used you. I needed cover, a successful life coach, a beautiful woman who believes in spirituality and charity, the perfect face for fundraising. And you were just looking for an excuse to leave your boring husband. Sarah felt the world crumbling around her. Everything she believed in these past months turned out to be a lie, a beautiful, glossy lie she created for herself. Meanwhile, in a suite at the Four Seasons Denver, I sat before my laptop. On the screen, the results of a financial audit of Marcus's company that I'd initiated through my connections at Goldman Sachs. Are you sure you want to do this? Ryan's voice on the phone sounded concerned. More than ever, I clicked send. You know, I've always prided myself on working with numbers. They don't lie, don't betray, don't play with people's feelings. And now these numbers are going to tell a very interesting story about how a charitable foundation became one enterprising startup founder's personal piggy bank. And Sarah? What about Sarah? I looked out at the Denver skyline. She made her choice. Now she can live with the consequences. Neither of us slept that night. I spent hours methodically preparing documents for the financial investigation of Marcus' company. Sarah sat on the floor of our empty living room, reading through old messages, trying to understand at what point she lost everything that truly mattered. And somewhere in a high rise in downtown Austin, Marcus was frantically deleting files and clearing bank transfer histories. But it was too late. The wheel of retribution had begun its motion, and there was no stopping it. Cheeseman Park welcomed me with a crisp autumn breeze. 3 months had passed since that night when my world collapsed. 3 months during which I'd received a promotion, moved to Austin, and helped the feds uncover one of the biggest scams in charity history. I stood by the fountain looking at downtown Denver spread out below. The skyline pierced the gray sky like needles stitching together torn fabric of reality. Here in this park, I had once proposed to Sarah. It seemed fitting that this was where she'd asked to meet. I heard her footsteps long before she appeared. The click of heels had lost their former confidence, as if they'd shed their previous arrogance. When she rounded the corner, I barely recognized her. Before me stood not the confident yoga life coach, but an exhausted woman in simple mass-market clothes. Her hair, once always perfectly styled at an expensive salon, was carelessly pulled back in a ponytail. Dark circles under her eyes that even makeup couldn't hide. Nathan, her voice trembled. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I nodded silently, continuing to look at the city. She nervously fidgeted with the strap of her worn bag, the same one I'd given her for our first anniversary. She used to call it too basic for her status. I've been trying to find work. The words fell like stones. But after the scandal with Marcus's foundation, nobody wants anything to do with someone whose name is tied to charity fraud. You should have thought about that earlier. My voice was steady, emotionless. I was such a fool. She suddenly dropped to her knees, not caring about getting her gens dirty. He used me. All that talk about spirituality, about higher purpose, it was just an act to get me to help him raise money. I watched tears roll down her face, smearing cheek mascara. Once, such a sight would have broken my heart. Now I felt only exhaustion. And you know what's the worst part? She raised her reddened eyes to me. When they arrested him, he tried to pin everything on me. Told the investigators that I came up with the charity scheme. That he just trusted his spiritual leader. Classic con man move. I shrugged. Find a trusting person, use their reputation, then make them the fall guy. Nathan, please. She reached out with trembling hands. I've realized everything. I've changed. Let me prove. Prove what? I finally turned to face her. That you're sorry. Of course you're sorry. Your perfect life crumbled. Your lover turned out to be a fraud. Your reputation is destroyed. But you know what's the saddest part? You're not sorry about betraying me. You're sorry about the consequences. That's not true. She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. I love you. I always have. Love. I let out a bitter laugh. You know what real love is, Sarah? It's when you're willing to give everything for another person. But you sold our love for the illusion of a glamorous life. for fake spirituality and stolen money. I pulled an envelope from my pocket and placed it on the bench beside her. What's this? She looked at the papers warily. Divorce papers, already signed by the judge. Don't worry, I left you the house and the car. Consider it my final gift. Please, she grabbed my hand. Don't go. I don't want anything. Not the house, not the car. Just you. I carefully freed my hand from her fingers. You know what I realized these past months? Some things can't be brought back. Trust is one of them. Goodbye, Sarah. I hope you find your true calling. Just try not to build it on someone else's misery next time. As I walked away, I could hear her sobs. They echoed off the trees, merging with the city noise. But I didn't look back. Ahead of me was a flight to Austin, a new position, and a life where there was no room for betrayal. She remained kneeling in the empty park, clutching the papers that put a period to our story. The great spiritual coach who lost everything chasing false glitter. Maybe that's karma too. The smell of autumn leaves filled the air as I walked to my car. My phone buzzed. A message from the FBI task force thanking me for my cooperation in the case. Marcus would be facing federal charges, and his charitable foundation was being dismantled piece by piece. The numbers had told their story, just as I knew they would. I paused at my car, taking one last look at the Denver skyline. This city held so many memories, both beautiful and painful. But like the autumn leaves falling around me, it was time to let them go. Starting the engine, I thought about the irony of it all. Sarah had gone searching for closure with her past, only to end up closing the door on her future. And I had found my own kind of closure in the cold, hard truth of numbers and justice. As I drove away from Cheeseman Park, Sarah's sobs faded into the distance, becoming just another echo in the city's symphony. Ahead lay Interstate 70, stretching toward Austin like a ribbon of possibilities. They say every ending is a new beginning. Mine was waiting 900 miles south, in a city where I'd helped build something real, something honest, the very thing Sarah had thrown away chasing shadows. The Denver skyline grew smaller in my rearview mirror, and with it, the last traces of what we once were. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving forward, about building something better from the ashes of what was lost. And that's exactly what I intended to do.